Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is To Back or Not to Back, although it's a little different than our typical To Back or Not to Back. I'm probably calling this one something along the lines of To Back or Not to Back in case you missed it, and that's because I'm going over 12 older campaigns. I think it's 12, it might have been a different number, but either way, I'm going through a bunch of older campaigns, things that I haven't talked about in a while, but all games that have some form of either late pledge or pre-order available, because we got basically nothing on Kickstarter right now. There's like 3 campaigns that have more than 100 backers in terms of new stuff since last week. I'm not going to talk about the new stuff this week. I'll save it for next week. We'll do all the usuals. This week is a bit of a look back on a bunch of prior campaigns, specifically ones that I try to find ones that I thought were worth talking about that had a smaller backer count, that in case you missed it, but most of these are still going to be in the higher ranges. They're just campaigns that for whatever reason I picked these 12. I could have picked others. My main criteria were that they had some form of late pledge or pre-order, as well as the fact that I haven't talked about them too recently, that they're not campaigns that have happened in the past 4 or 5 months. So yeah, if you're new to this channel, then you likely did miss them, and if you're not new to the channel, you may still have missed them, and this is your chance to go ahead and jump in on them. As usual, timestamps down below, especially more relevant than usual, because you might want to skip any individual section in case you didn't miss it. And starting off the bat, we're going to start with For Humours. Now, For Humours is from Adam's Apples Games. This is the first of 2 Adam's Apples games I have on this list. For Humours is a strategic deduction game that focuses heavily on the prisoner's dilemma. In For Humours, what you're going to do, and this is, by the way, the way I ordered them is in terms of the smallest backer count to the largest backer count, so more likely the ones you missed are on the first half of this video. But with 1,200 backers, this is one that has a prisoner's dilemma worker placement genre going on. That as you place different workers onto different zones, you're going to be placing your workers face down, but you have different colors, different options. So if you look at any of these cards over here, like you can kind of see over here, then basically each zone has at least 2 different ways you can put down a worker. So you can put down a worker in different ways. You could maybe put down a gold worker, maybe put down a red worker, and there are different ways that they play out as you go through a sequence of trying to resolve them all. And this is where the prisoner's dilemma comes into play, because you're placing workers face down, but you're cooperating or screwing over other players as you talk it through, trying to say, well, no, I'll put down a red over here, you put down a red over there, then we'll have lovers, we'll both get the rewards. Meanwhile, one of you might actually be playing a gold, in which case you'll actually end up killing the other person, but that might mean somebody else might win. It's a whole degree of trying to work together while understanding that you may well backstab each other the entire time. It works incredibly well. This is a game I can easily recommend if you like games like Coup, if you like games like The Resistance, if you like any of these little mind game style games. Will play in roughly half an hour, plays well at 3 and 4 players, and not as well at 2, but plays well at 3 and 4 players, and really gives you a little thinky, screwage, puzzly little game from Adam's Apples Games. I won't be talking as much about general value as I do usually in this older look back, but what I will say, this is one that's probably less likely to hold its value, but falls into that category of ones that if you want to get your hands in it, Kickstarter is likely the best and easiest opportunity. This is one, and by the way, every single game I talk about today is one that I have been able to play as well, so part of the reason I chose them is because I'm more excited with them, having actually played them, and not just looking at them through the screen. So overall, For Humours, Adam's Apples Games, really enjoyable one. That is our first look back. Next up, we have Keystone North America, arguably the most recent from all of these campaigns, with one sort of exception, which we'll get to. But either way, Keystone North America from Rose Gauntlet Entertainment, this coming in with 1,500 backers. This was their first campaign, and this is one that if you like games like Canvas, if you like games like Meadow, this is one that I can easily recommend, although that's an interesting recommendation because I didn't love Meadow, although I do love Keystone North America. Keystone North America is one of those games that has these variable scoring challenges, or even if you like Cascadia or Calico, any of those games, it's a game where you're trying to take things in order to accomplish a variety of different scoring mechanisms as you go through the game. The idea is that you have these grids over here, this 4x4 grid, and you're trying to take these cards that have to fit into the grid in a numeric system, so you have the 1, 2, 3, 4 escalation, but you're also trying to be mindful of if it's a keystone species so you can get extra points. You're also trying to be mindful of your various bonuses that you can play so you can get more points for your bonuses. Lots of little puzzly challenges you're trying to be mindful of as you go through the abilities and or the straight drafting and or paying extra tokens so you can get more. It is a really solid game. The most direct comparison will be Canvas, but offering you a very different style of gameplay while having a lot of general similarities. I would say it falls into the camp of Canvas to Keystone is similar to, let's say, Calico to Cascadia, sharing a lot of overlap in some of the general concepts while managing to be different enough that you might want to consider owning both, especially if you like this genre of games. As far as holding its value or not, this is one that the retail version definitely will be available, and the extras over here in the Kickstarter did make it significantly more expensive, so you'll have to decide whether you like those extras. Some of those include, the different playmats, sets or boards, deluxified tokens. There were a lot of extra things that added to the cost. You can either pick this up, the cheap version at retail down the road, or still late pledge the deluxe version of the game if you want to get in on that. Overall, it's one that I really enjoyed. Lots of diverse artwork, lots of just tons of species and this and that, and all these different things. I really enjoyed this one. It's beautiful, it's pretty, it's challenging, solid first game from Rose Gauntlet Entertainment. This is Keystone North America. And by the way, some of these, I'll have links to everything down below. If the late pledge is harder to find, then my link will be for the late pledge as opposed to the Kickstarter page. Third on the list, although I guess you've seen it for the past 7 seconds, is Pagan Fate of Roanoke. And this is one that comes in with 2,000 backers, starting to get higher than that, 100,000 euro raised, and Pagan Fate of Roanoke it was a really solid game. This is a 2-player head-to-head game in which one player is playing as the pagans, one player is playing as the witch hunter. I guess that's, pagans, witch hunter, whatever it is. One player is playing as the witch, one player is playing as the witch hunter. And it has a degree of deduction and worker placement as you try to resolve these actions, trying to find some more pictures of the actual, game itself. Lots of coverage over the game. You can check it out. Here we got some of the factions. You can have these boards. You're placing down these different villagers, trying to manipulate the villagers into these different realms of the board while trying to secretly, you know which one is you. You know which one is the witch, while the witch hunter is trying to track you down and figure out who you are. Throughout the game, you're going to be utilizing the different bonuses, trying to figure out which way you can do the bonuses that you want to get to further your goals, while not overtly revealing who the witch is, because as you pile up tokens, the witch will win by piling up activations effectively on their own character. But the more you do that, the more you beg the other player to wonder which one is the witch. So it's this constant degree of escalation of eventually activating your character enough, but not giving them enough reasons to track you down. It is a tense, tough back and forth. A lot of escalation, a lot of trying to manipulate, a lot of escalation of the player's powers and abilities, the way they can each update their tableau to get more done as they go through the game. It was a really solid 2-player head-to-head. Only potential flaw is that it runs a bit long, but if you like deduction, if you like this kind of game, if you like games like Le Phantom de Opera, if you like games like... Probably should have had more recommendations here. What are the tactical deduction-based head-to-heads? It really had that deduction vibe to it as you try to figure out what's happening in the game and try to outpace and outclass your opponent accordingly. It was a really solid game. This is, again, I think it's their first Kickstarter. Let me double check. I believe it was their first Kickstarter. What do we have over here? We have Alexander Omer and First Created. Yeah, First Created Kickstarter from them. Overall, really enjoyed this one. And then again, this one falls in the category of, I don't know if it'll hold its value just because it was fairly expensive. Pagan Fate of Roanoke is a great game, but I don't think the audience is large enough for the price point in this to be one where you can turn around and sell it for what you got it for. That said, again, it's one that won't have a ton of wide availability. So if you are interested in this game, the Kickstarter may be the best opportunity to get your hands in it. But overall, Pagan Fate of Roanoke, delightful game, really solid one. Very much enjoyed this one. And you can late pledge, because all of these you can late pledge. Which brings us to the exception on the list, Grove, the most recent of these games, and that's because I somehow missed talking about this one. Grove is from Side Room Games, and it's a game that I didn't talk about at all during the Kickstarter, so in case you missed it, in this case is, if you rely on my channel and for Kickstarter coverage, I didn't cover this one at all. I don't know how. I kind of caught it in the last 3 days, and by that time it was too late for me to cover it properly. I don't know what happened. I apologize. I've since subscribed to Side Room Games. I will now find their Kickstarters and all that stuff. This is completely on me. I don't know what happened. But either way, Grove is a puzzle solo experience. This is a game that falls in the category, if you like Sprawlopolis, you should be getting this game. If you like any of the games I've recently showed the past 2 weeks, we had 2 series of solo games. Same idea there. Grove is the re-implementation of a game called Orchard. Orchard is a game that I believe is rated a 7.5 on Board Game Geek, so overall is well received, and Orchard is a 9-card solo challenge that has had a print and play, it's had picked up by Side Room Games, and Grove is the spiritual successor to Orchard, taking a lot of the same gameplay and adding more to it. And an important relevance of that is one of the pledge levels here gives you Combined Harvester, giving you both Grove and Orchard, and I based on what I know about the games, granted I haven't played, this is also the exception in terms of being the only game I haven't played, because it's one that I just didn't cover at all, but overall this is one where, from what I've seen of the games, I don't recommend this combined pledge, because everything I see online from people who've played both say that Grove is simply the better version of Orchard. It does everything that Orchard does, but more so. So if you could theoretically get Orchard, but it sounds like you'd be signing up for having a good game, and the same game, but better. So that's a choice you can make there. As far as the actual gameplay, Grove is a game that, like I said already, is a solo experience. If you like games like Sprawlopolis, then then you should be considering this one. Also, by the way, another interruption, there's no pledge manager open for this one just yet, but there will be a pledge manager coming soon, so you can stay tuned for that. They said it's going to be coming at some point soon, so you can actually late pledge this one. This is an exception across all my rules. It's one that I haven't covered, it's one that I haven't played, and the pledge manager is not actually available just yet. But going back to the game, it's an 18 card solo challenge, in which you're going to take 9 cards, and you're going to be playing with those 9 cards, and then you're going to take from the other 9 cards, you're going to be taking some challenges to beat. This is going to remind you of Sprawlopolis if you've played Sprawlopolis. The idea that you have the backs of some cards being the goals, and the other cards being played with in the game. Those 9 cards will be slowly overlaid over one another as you slowly escalate the amount of fruit in each orchard. So you have to lay over the same color over the same color. So you can, for instance, put a green tree over a green tree, although you can always overlay an empty patch over a tree. But that will allow you to start growing the values of the trees, rotating the dice to start adding more and more fruits to those various trees, and then trying to accomplish your goals at the same time. So it has that Sprawlopolis feel in terms of overlapping cards, in terms of managing other challenges, in terms of playing the cards one at a time until you get them. It's not going to have the Sprawlopolis price, although it's not that much more. The game comes in at $15 plus $5 for shipping in the US. It'll change based on where you are, and that's going to be a little more than the games like Sprawlopolis, although it does come with all these dice and all that. Like these other games, it falls in the category of one that likely you will not be able to sell it for what you paid for it in terms of, well, if you get this game, but it is one where it's likely the cheapest price you can get your hands on it, just the nature of the game. It's a small little card box, not a lot going on there, small little dice, 18 cards fitting in a little box, not a ton going on there, but a ton of gameplay going on there. Again, Grove is a well-rated, Orchard is a well-rated game to begin with, and Grove seems to take all of that and only further add to what the game is doing. Which brings us to Ragnarocks, a fast, fun game for the designer of Santorini, coming in at 4,100 backers. Grove was at what? Grove was at, I think it was 2,500 backers. That's a big jump over there. 2,500 to 4,200 backers. Ragnarocks from Grey Fox Games. A usual disclaimer that Grey Fox Games has had issues with their Kickstarters in the past and potentially will continue. I don't know. Also, at the same time, I do note that and will say that, it's also true that in general, the people who complain are usually the ones who have issues, and for every person who complains, there are dozens who say that they have no issues. That said, Grey Fox does seem to have a slightly higher ratio of issues, so factor that into everything I'm saying, just so you are walking in fully aware. I myself have had no issues with their games, but again, some do, some don't. In any case, Ragnarocks. Ragnarocks is from the designer of Santorini, and it gives you a similar feeling to Santorini. I still prefer Santorini, so if you want that out of the way, at least as of right now, I think I prefer Santorini, although my wife drastically prefers Ragnarok's, so Ragnarok's may well see playtime. This is a game that I had it in my house for like, I don't know, less than a week, and we got like 13, 14 plays of it in. My wife really enjoyed it. She went from her first game not being so into it, and then second, third, fourth, etc., continuously trying to stomp me because she found that enjoyable. This is a game that effectively gives you the same idea of Santorini, that you have an abstract game, but past the abstract game, once you're done with that, you also have variable player powers to mix up the experience. So you have a core concept that you need to play, and that core concept is similar to a game called Terra Nova, a game that is excellent and great, and I got rid of it based on Ragnarok's. Probably should have kept Terra Nova longer, because I don't have Ragnarok's yet, and I've had to since send the prototype on, so that might have been a mistake, because Terra Nova is delightful, by the way. But despite Terra Nova being delightful, Ragnarok's gave me the same feeling but with more variability. And the idea of it is you're going to move your various Vikings around this board. Every time you move a Viking, you can then put a little runestone on the board. The goal is to end up with the largest spaces and have your opponent be in the smaller secluded spaces that you're controlling more land. That's simple enough, very much what Runestones does, not a lot of change there. But then from there, this game mixes it up from the stance that every player has their own unique ability. There's also some changes to the general way the general structure of the game. Again, the general structure and rules are similar, while the size of the board, the number of Vikings you have, that's very different games from Runestones and Terra Nova there. But again, Ragnarok's will differ not just in those elements, in those side elements, but also in the core idea that every character has the unique ability, some way that they break the game, potentially some ways that they win the game differently. Again, this will be very similar to Santorini if you've played Santorini. This is a delightful experience, plays quick, plays 1 to 2 players. Actually, I don't know anything about the solo mode, so I can't comment on that. We've only played it 2 players, and it's just a delightful experience. If you like abstract experiences, this is a lot of fun. If you like Santorini, I cannot recommend this one enough. If you don't like abstract experiences or Santorini, then I would recommend you pass on this, because I don't know why you'd get your hands on this game if you don't like Santorini, when it's basically the same idea of Santorini. It's an abstract of powers and abilities, so I mean, you might like this if you don't like Santorini. I wouldn't risk it, because you might not at the same time. Speaking of risking it, this is one that overall, like many Grey Fox games before them, you'll be able to get this one cheaper down the road at retail for the less delightful deluxe, less premium stuff. You may not care about those deluxe premium stuff. There's extras in terms of extra cards, extra deluxeifications of tokens, lots of stuff that was exclusive in the campaign. So if you want it all, Kickstarter will be the way to go. But if you're comfortable just getting a lower down retail copy of the game, then by all means you'll be able to get it much cheaper once this one eventually lands. As usual, late pledge available, which brings us to the next one, Planet Unknown. Now, Planet Unknown is another one that I have a bit of a disclaimer on, in the sense that in their most recent update, they've talked about the fact this is an older campaign, still available to late pledge, but it's definitely an older campaign. This is one that I was excited to get at the beginning of 2021, and here we are, and it looks like maybe I'll get it at the beginning of 2022. So this is an older game, it has been delayed. You should read this update. What to expect soon, transparency, unexpected challenges, all that. Absolutely read this update, and this is relevant for 4 Humours as well, by the way. Walk in informed. While I believe that everyone backing this game will likely get their games, it's also a risk. As soon as you have companies who are having any issues whatsoever, it is a risk. And some of those issues are from the pandemic in general, from the increased cost of goods, the increased cost of freight. To their credit, they have not asked backers to pay more shipping. That is very relevant, because in an age where companies more and more have asked backers to cough up and pay more shipping, saying, hey, freight crisis, this, that, all that stuff, it's the kind of thing that if it was a desperate last move, you could do that. The fact that they haven't done that makes me more confident that you are likely getting your games, everything's working out fine, but I would be remiss if I didn't give you that full transparency, full warning, before diving into what an awesome game Planet Unknown is. Now, if you watch my channel long enough, then you know that Planet Unknown is a game that I have talked about extensively. I bring it up whenever I can, and this video is no exception. You see, I have a lot of Polyomino games in my collection. I like a lot of Polyomino games. I like Baron Park, I liked Isle of Cats, I like Project L, I like all of the Cottage Garden series from Rosenberg, I like Patchwork, I like all these games. I like putting little Polyomino pieces on my board. But Planet Unknown, for me, is the game that I always wanted Isle of Cats to be. You see, Isle of Cats is a game that I was very excited about. It was a little more gamified, that's not the right term. It's a little more heavier than your typical Polyomino game. You see, Baron Park, to date, is still my favorite Polyomino experience. I mean, if you want heavy Polyomino, you can go Feast for Odin, but it always felt a little out of place for me there. Versus Baron Park is one of my favorite Polyomino games, but it's one that very much is a lighter, more accessible game. Isle of Cats is a game that I was hoping would be the heavier Polyomino focused game that I wanted for my table, but it's one that kind of let me down. While it was enjoyable, I never loved the drafting, and the whole system never felt as cohesive as I'd like. People love Isle of Cats. You should pay attention and get your hands on Isle of Cats if you like Polyomino games. I am definitely in the minority here. But that said, I still didn't work for me as well. Planet Unknown, on the other hand, absolutely blew me away. This is a game that I've only played this one online. I've played this on TTS, but it was absolutely delightful in the sense that you're placing your little planets. You have tons of planets, by the way, tons of variability. Different planets give you different challenges to face as well at the same time. So there's lots of variability in this game, lots of ways to jump into the experience, but you're basically placing these polyominoes down on the planet, getting points for rows and columns that you fill out, while trying to be mindful of the lining up your various sections, and then also being mindful of the various goals as you try to send your little rovers around to collect different things. It has tons of variability. It has the little tactical planning of a rondel, center rondel that you're all taking from. Lots of fun going on here, and a ton, I've said this a few times, but I'm going to say it again, a sheer ton of variability in the experience they're providing as you put down those different tiles, try to escalate your different things. You have unique faction boards, company boards that will give you different rewards as you go through. You have unique planet boards. A general ton of unique things as you go through this game, all while giving you a fairly heavy Polyomino focused experience. To me, this is the game, like I said already, it's the game I wanted Isle of Cats to be, but you should still check out Isle of Cats because it's like in the top 100 at this point, I think. I don't know exactly. Either way, really enjoy Planet Unknown, really excited for this one to arrive, really hope whatever issues they have do clear up. Again, it sounds like they're just temporary road bumps, but still walk in being fully informed. As far as will it hold its value, I think if this one makes it, I think you'll be fine, because you see, part of the factor here is with them talking about how the price of goods are going up. That means you'll either be getting a dialed down version in retail with less stuff going on, or alternatively, if it's not available in retail, whatever version you have will be significantly more expensive because the cost of goods is going up, which means the price is going up. So if they have the retail version if they have a deluxe version of the game available, it'll be more expensive than the Kickstarter one over here. So I think you are safe as far as holding its value, but again, with that small little risk factor there. That's Planet Unknown. Really love this game. I mean, oh my gosh, leveling up these various tracks, unique bonuses, tons of different stuff to go on. There's a lot. You have some of these tracks over here, you go different routes. I'm getting sidetracked. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of variability, and I've only experienced a tiny taste of this game. It's available on what's it called? On what's that new Sovereignty. It's available on Sovereignty, by the way, so you can go ahead and do that. And if you do go to get Sovereignty, tell them that the Hungry Gamer sent you. Moving on to Freedom 5, a Sentinel Comics board game. Freedom 5. This, we take a large jump, another large jump from what was Planet Unknown. Planet Unknown was 4,156 backers. Fun fact, by the way, that's one backer more than the 4,155 we have on Ragnarocks. But that brings us to Freedom 5, where we see a big jump, another 1,500 backers going to 5,900 backers. Freedom 5, a Sentinel Comics board game. This is from Arcane Wonders, and especially, let's say, if you're someone who's sick of Marvel and you don't want, like, ridiculous, crazy Marvel stuff like Marvel Zombicide in your board games, but you do like superheroes, this takes the Sentinels of the Multiverse universe and takes it to your table with gigantic miniatures, colored in miniatures, or painted, pre-painted, not colored in. Colored in is the wrong term. Pre-painted miniatures, if you like any of that, giving you a ton of stuff over here, an absolute ton, although with the price point to boot. You see, you can just get the base game, you can pay $100, get all the stuff, and you still get a decent amount for the $100, but you can also go ahead and spend as much as, what's the all-in here, $499. Is that even the all-in, or that's just to be a Sentinel? No, we gotta go down a bit. $475, the all-in cosmetic and gameplay, to go ahead and just get everything for this game, pre-painted this, pre-painted that, gigantic miniatures that are ridiculously over-the-top large, they are, and just way more content than you need. If you want to try their game, you can go ahead and get the base pledge alone, and this is one that I simultaneously really enjoyed, while also not being 100% certain about, because this is Sentinels of the Multiverse into a board game, designed by Richard Lanius, the designer of Arkham Horror, as well as dozens of other games, and this is giving you, like I said, Sentinels of the Multiverse in a board game. You're going to zip around the city, you're going to have, not really deck building, but just deck stuff. You're going to have your hero deck, your unique cards, the way you team up against different people in the game. There's a ton going on here as you race around the board, trying to accomplish different objectives, trying to rescue civilians, trying to take out the various henchmen, trying to take out the various villains, or that, what's the term for them? There's henchmen, then there's like annoying villains, and then the big bad boss. I can't remember the specific terms for them all, but you're taking them all out, feeling like a superhero as you go. The expansions, the stretch goals, the game will give you a ton of characters. I never even had this cowboy. This cowboy here, they have tons of different options here. Again, all from the Sentinels of the Multiverse universe, bringing it to your table in board game form. Tons of upgrades and deluxifications and colored stuff. Way more stuff than you absolutely need for the game. But again, base pledge alone will give you what you need. Now, the game was a ton of fun. I felt like a superhero. Also, elements of the game were a bit fiddly, and I still want to see, again, prototype, all that stuff. My experience very much prototype, still hopefully being streamlined, cleaned up. But if you are a Sentinels of the Multiverse fan, you're more than used to fiddly, and it was less fiddly than Sentinels of the Multiverse. So depends on what your bar for streamlined versus fiddly is. If you're used to Marvel United, this will be a big step up in the complexity it is giving you and the amount of extra things to manage and be mindful of as you go through the game. Versus if you're someone who's played Arkham Horror, Sentinels of the Multiverse from Richard Lanius and Sentinels of the Multiverse universe combined, then yeah, this is going to be a no-brainer as far as being able to jump in and handle everything. The biggest thing for me, from my very first play, I remember I played my first game of this, and then I sat there and I texted Arcane Wonders and I said, hey, this game feels like you're a superhero. The way you zip around the board, the way you use your cards, the way you lean into the character's powers, it feels like you're just running around, doing your thing, zipping around, whatever, like the Speedster, the Flash equivalent, whatever his name was, I don't remember, just running from location to location, just pinging little henchmen, clearing the board, ensuring you don't get overwhelmed in what has a little bit of a pandemic system of henchmen overwhelming different regions. It's a cooperative experience, but one that has a lot going for it. If you like the IP, the Sentinels of the Multiverse, if you like superhero games, if you like cooperative games, if you like Arkham Horror, if you like any of these things, there's a lot here in this game to like. That's Freedom 5 from Arcane Wonders. Next up, we have Merchants of the Dark Road, and this is available to pre-order. This is not available to late pledge, and that pre-order, yes, you can get the deluxe edition of the game on pre-order. Yes, it will cost you $25 more than it did on the Kickstarter. So that $74 price tag for the deluxe edition, that's going to run you $99 over on their site, but you could pre-order it, you could get your hands in it, and this is one that I'll actually have a review going up for later this week. Merchants of the Dark Road is a delightful game from Elf Creek Games. This is a heavier experience in terms of crunchy, meaty gameplay as you go through the rondels, and I don't have only positive things. If you want all the negative stuff, you can watch my review later this week, but I would say overall, I have a lot of high opinions of this game. Overall, there's a lot going on here in terms of a meaty experience. If you're like someone that likes heavy, crunchy Euros, there's a lot happening here. This is a rondel-based system. Let's see if we can scroll down over here. This is a rondel-based system from Brent, no, is it Brent? Geez, what's his name? Brian Sir. It's a rondel system I'm trying to scroll to find the map here. Oh my gosh, the deluxifications are insane. The deluxified stuff in this game, absolutely over the top. Tons of things over here. Either way, let's keep scrolling to see if we can actually find a board. I just want a board. That's all I want over here. I'm trying to find a board for the game. You have your wagon. You have a board over here. Here we go-ish. This is close enough. Basically, it has a rondel system as you try to take your wagons and move them around the rondel, activating locations before or after your wagon. Every location is in the pinpoint between 2 different regions of the 5 core regions of the board. So you have the 5 core regions. You have the Great Bazaar, the Queen's Commission, the Ruins of Yin, and Yurg's Excursions. And if you're like, that's 6 locations total, because we have the Dark Market, and then we have the what's it called? The Ringway Inn. If you're thinking that's 6 locations, that's because the Ruins of Yin and Yurg's Excursions are accessed from the same location. So you're moving your wagon around, trying to take different actions, trying to get goods from the marketplace, trying to go to the dark market to get goods a little bit on the sly, getting what you need, paying a little coin, greasing whatever hand you need, then going to the Highway Inn, the Ringway Inn, in order to pick up adventurers, sell your goods to them, and then start planning around the fact that maybe you'll be going to the Ruins of Yin, where having adventurers, having heroes will help you, because you can find deluxe treasures in the ruins. You'll go to the Queen's Commissions, where you'll pick up the actual commissions you need, that you need to go going off to these external little villages and selling off all the goods you got there, because the game is a balance of selling goods for money versus earning commissions, earning prestige in the game, because your score will be the lower of the two. You need to balance the economy of the game and the prestige of the game as you go on these excursions, if you go on these travels, as other players travel with you, as you roll dice and figure out what adventures you have along the way, as you take shortcuts, lots of things going on in this game, and everything interweaves and intermingles as you'd expect in a fairly mid-weight heavy Euro game. A lot happening here, multiple rondels, maybe it's not multiple, maybe it's just one rondel, but multiple circular things happening. A lot happening, a lot interweaving. This yeah, it's a lot going on. More stuff in the review if you want to find out there. But the deluxe version of this game should be no surprise if you like Elf Creek games. Elf Creek, by the way, currently has Honey Buzz Fall Flavors on Kickstarter. But if you like Elf Creek games and the deluxeifications, the deluxe version of this game is completely crazy. You won't see that in the review. The review I have is a standard copy. We'll talk about that later. But they just have a ton of things. They have dual layered wagons. They have upgraded coins. Some of the most premium coins I've ever seen in a board game. And well, I haven't actually seen them yet, but I'm expecting them. These things over here, these two-tone, 3-tone metal coins look absolutely amazing. They're the kind of thing you'd want to keep for even other games. I mean, again, I haven't seen them in person, but from the designs I've seen, they look absolutely off the chart. We have these wagons and these lanterns and the runes or whatever, the crystals, what are they called again? Rune stones, I don't know what they are. And then we have the horseshoes, just tons of over-the-top deluxeified components for this game if you got the deluxe, or if you get the deluxe version of this game. Or you can get the retail version of the game, which already looks gorgeous, amazing art from the artist of Andrew Bosley. From Andrew Bosley, the artist of Everdell. Amazing artwork, really stands out over here. And just a ton of stuff happening. Tons of things going on, more than enough. We have the resin markers. Oh my gosh, this is insane. Insane what they have over here. But this is Merchants of the Dark Road. Solid game, solid gameplay. There's actually a gameplay over on Quackle's channel if you want to check that out, as well as first impressions and all of that. Merchants of the Dark Road from Elf Creek Games. As far as will it hold its value, well, you're backing at the $99. You're pre-ordering at the $99 pledge. So this is more of a pre-order, so I would say no, because people can just buy from them instead of from you. But if you back this on Kickstarter, then yeah, I mean, you can sell it for more than you paid for it. That should be fine, especially if you got all those extras, those coins, all that stuff. Lots going on here. Merchants of the Dark Road. Moving on to a game that I absolutely need to play. Machina Arcana. Machina Arcana. I actually put up a video last week of 10 games I need to play or I'm getting rid of them, and I should have put Machina Arcana on this list because Machina Arcana is so good. Although it's not going anywhere even if I don't play it, so I refuse to, because this one, I'm not taking any chances with Machina Arcana. This is a game that even if I don't play it, it's been a while since I played it, but even if I don't play it, it's not going anywhere. This is the third edition of the game. They had Machina Arcana first edition, then second edition. Third edition is more like small tweaks to the game, not major changes to anything. It's far less differences than first and second. If you have the second edition, that's great, enjoy it. If you have the third edition, well, that's great, enjoy it slightly more, marginally more, just a tad more. But either way, this is a 1 to 4 player experience, solo and or co-op experience, in which you are basically playing as steampunk adventurers going into a bit of a dungeon dive experience. It's a dungeon crawler in the typical sense, although again, I always have to give this disclaimer. The designer does not like referring to the game as a dungeon crawler. He does not think of it as a dungeon crawler, but I will go with the fact that I think of it as a dungeon crawler, so this is my opinion of the game. Either way, I respect his vision. He's a very... oh my gosh, he's dedicated to this project, passionate about this project. This is their third Kickstarter on the same game. He keeps iterating and developing and tweaking the same game rather than just putting out the next thing for tomorrow, the next thing for tomorrow. And it shows in the gameplay. Machina Arcana is a game that, by all accounts, I should be ignoring it because it has standees instead of miniatures, and if you watch my channel, you know that I like the plastic. I do like the plastic. A game that is shiny, looks nice, has plastic, will make me pay attention. Unfortunately, it will draw me in. I don't usually keep it because of that, but it certainly makes me pay more attention, and in Machina Arcana, I am very, very happy that I somehow decided to go ahead and get my hands on this game. Now, to be fair, despite the lack of miniatures, the game looks gorgeous. The art is absolutely gorgeous, really pulls you in. But the gameplay is better than the art. The gameplay has you frantically running through the dungeon trying to survive because every creature, every foe you face is a new threat. Every someone you face is something that is potentially going to get in your way. This is another one, by the way, that is available for pre-order, not late pledge. The rest of them are all late pledges. But this is one that is delivering soon, hence the more pre-order over late pledge. But yeah, this is a game where, I said this again like 4 times now, but this game, let's go with that, this game has you running through dungeons trying to survive, and it has like a kind of side-scrolling mechanic where as you eventually move off one map, if you push people off that 2x2 grid, then you can eventually just kill people that way. Or you can set traps, or you can actually attack them head on, although that is risky. Be very careful before you do, because every single thing you encounter in this game is a threat. Meanwhile, you're leveling up your stats, you're gathering more gear, you're trying to just survive until you can get to the end of the scenario, because the slowly progressive scenario, counting different goals on the tiles before you move to the next tile, and eventually you get to the end and you have to try to accomplish your goals there, and you have to hope that you've built yourself up well enough along the way, because otherwise you will die. But along the way, you'll have fun. So even if you die at the end, you will have had fun. The end is tough. If you've played too many bones, then that kind of mentality is very much present. The mentality of you can fight and persevere throughout the rest of the time, but when you get to the final big bad at the end, you've either managed to do enough to kill it or not. But either way, the whole challenge is fun, and it's something that you will get better at the big bads, the ending scenarios as you go through it, and you will learn more how to build your character, how to anticipate, how to go through the experience in the way that is best suited towards taking them out. The gear is all entirely fun, very steampunky, the way it connects, the way you do things, the way you just have cool abilities, fun little abilities, stepping through walls, pushing people over ledges into the abyss, lots of fun things going on in the gear, not just pure stats. It's a lot of fun little actions and abilities and things like that. Tons of characters, tons of monsters, a lot happening in this game. Machina Arcana is a game that I really, really need to get tabled. But again, even if I didn't, it wouldn't be going anywhere. Next up, we have Vindication. Vindication Board Game Chronicles Expansion. This is from Orange Nebula. This is one that you can late pledge. The rest of these you can late pledge. 3 left, by the way. Vindication and then 2 more. Vindication jumping to 84. Well, actually, Machina Arcana jumped. No, step back. Freedom 5 was 5,800 backers, 5,900 backers. Merchants of the Dark Road brought us to 6,500 backers, and Machina Arcana brought us to 8,000 backers, and then Vindication with 8,400 backers. This is the third, maybe fourth, I think third expansion for Vindication. Third Kickstarter for Vindication. We have the original Vindication, we have Vindication Leaders and Chronicle, Leaders and something or other, and then we have Vindication, the Chronicles expansion. Vindication, first of all, an amazing game, an amazing experience, one that, like many games, I need to play it more, but Vindication is such a good game. Now, for what it's worth, I'll tell you that I think it's an amazing game, even just the base game. I haven't played with any expansions, I haven't felt the need to, yet of course I backed Chronicles because Chronicles actually sounded like it might be really fun in terms of adding story narrative elements to the game that either will slow down the game and be annoying and frustrating, or will add more immersion and fun to the game, a game that's biggest critique from many people was the fact that it basically comes down to being a dry Euro cube pusher. But I personally am totally fine with the dry Euro cube pusher, so I don't really know where the expansion will end up for me. If you want to save money, just get the base game because this game is absolutely amazing. I love Vindication. You have to be comfortable with the fact that it is very much a Euro experience. If you are someone that appreciates the dungeon diving of Machina Arcana and you're not so much into the let's see how we can navigate this cube here and that cube here to ultimately combine with that and get the best resource manipulation out of it, Vindication is basically Agricola disguised as a thematic experience, although it's not really the same, but it's that idea. It very much is about trying to take into account the various cards in play, take into account the various actions you can take, the various ways you can move around the board, go to the locations, and then manipulating the best point value out of all of that. There's no fighting, there's no dice rolling for combat. There's technically dice rolling for combat, but it doesn't feel like dice rolling for combat. Even when you fight against the monster, you're basically always winning the monster. The dice rolling is kind of thematically side to the point, whatever it is. I'm getting sidetracked. The point is, this is a really solid experience. It has variable endgame conditions, it has a ton of variability, it has runes and relics and artifacts and a ton of stuff, and then tons of companions all giving you different abilities. While this is very much a draw Euro Q pusher, it's one that is full of powers and abilities left, right, and center at the same time. Those powers and abilities are just, more like the powers and abilities from Agricola, where you have a hand of cards that you can utilize in different ways that do give you powers and abilities. So it does have the powers and abilities I want. It has the wow moments that I crave. It has the fun stuff, that the fun, tight engine, and it usually fits into a 90-minute time slot. It is an excellent, amazing experience that you should be picking up, whether or not you get your hands on it from the Kickstarter. It might not work for you. It doesn't work for everyone. Like, no matter what game's out there, the same way Isle of Cats didn't work for me, I liked it, by the way, just not enough to keep it, the Vindication might just not be a game for you. That caveat is always true. But it's well rated, and it's well rated for a reason. 8,400 people came back to this campaign for a reason. And you can still jump in on it. You could get everything. They had a ridiculously good all-in pledge. They've also added a gigantic box for whatever. They're the ones who just recently did Unsettled. They do not respect the Calyx, I will say that, against the Orange Nebula. They don't respect the sanctity of uniform box sizes. So even their all-in box, I don't even know if it'll fit in a Calyx or not. I imagine it will. They have to at least be that, cognizant, right? Maybe? I don't know. Either way, even if it doesn't fit in a Calyx, I'll make it work. Even my Too Many Bones Trove chest, I know it's technically supposed to fit in a Calyx, but I don't actually have Calyxes. I have off-brand Better Home and Garden shelves that this one, the cube chest from Too Many Bones, technically doesn't fit into it by the tiniest millimeter of a millimeter, but I don't care. I put it on top of the shelf because some games are worth not fitting on your shelves. And Vindication is definitely one of those experiences. So yeah, you can get that. Will it hold its value or not? First of all, if you get the all-in pledge, absolutely. The all-in pledge gave a great deal. That said, the problem with that is you have to spend a lot of money to do that, and you could just get the base game, and it's more than enough. Like I said already, I have extra content for this game. I haven't needed to dive into it. The base game comes with tons of modular expansions inside of that. I haven't needed to dive into it. The game has so much variability baked in as it is that you don't need all the stuff for this game. Moving on to Primal the Awakening. 11,302 backers, €2 million raised from Reggie Games. This was a Kickstarter that was the beginning of the year, end of the year. I think it was the beginning of 2021, right? I'm pretty sure it was. But Primal the Awakening is, like many games here, not an experience for everyone. But it is so ridiculously good. I really like Primal the Awakening. It is basically, it's Marvel Champions combined with a boss hunting experience. You're facing off against these monsters on this tiny little board. That's all it is. There's no tactical grid where everyone runs around. Although my problem with tactical grids is that they mostly come down to just closing the distance to each other. And this doesn't bother with that. There's a lot of tactical maneuvering on this tiny little board that just comes down to who's facing in what direction. But Primal is so good. If you like games like Marvel Champions, Primal has that aspect where you have cards in your hand. The cards are used to pay for each other, so you have to choose which cards are the resources and which cards are the cards you're going to play. Because you're trying to take down this beast in front of you, and the way you change your cards, the way you focus on either defense, the way you focus on offense, the way you focus on managing their struggle so that they're not going to actually rise up and overpower you, versus just trying to take them out and slowly kill the levels one at a time so you can actually destroy them. There's so many different things to be mindful of, and then they have their own reaction decks that you're being mindful of, the different ways you can interact or hit on its tail, and it might turn around and snap its jaws at you. But if you kind of approach it from the flank, this might be the good time to hit it from the flank. Nothing bad will happen. You're trying to be mindful of all these things. You're trying to be mindful of the objectives the monsters give you. Each unique monster will give you different objectives, different things you have to try to do. Maybe hitting it on the tail is the current objective. Smash that thing on its tail and it's going to snap its head, roar around, or jump on top of a rock and leap onto its back and attack it from the back, is jabbing your sword into its neck. It gives you both theme, tactics, gameplay, strategy, deluxe miniatures, and unfortunately a high price tag as well. All those good things I said are great, but it does come with a high price tag. But we have 11,000 people who jumped in on this game. We have gorgeous artwork, great miniatures, a ton of gameplay, a campaign that is manageable, coming in at around 15 missions for that campaign. I believe it's 10 to 15 missions if I recall correctly. That is a manageable game length. That's going to run you 10 to 20 hours of gameplay as opposed to jumping and committing to a 50 to 100 hours of campaign. And that's a campaign that is replayable. You can dive into it again and again. You can pick how much content you have, which monsters you want to face off as, which monsters you want to play as, which hunters you want to play as, which monsters you want to face off against. I am so ridiculously excited for this game. I want everything with this experience. I want it all. I want to dive into it. This is basically, I love Marvel Champions, but this, I don't know which one will win as far as Marvel Champions versus Primal. And to me, not everyone compares them. I know a few people who have compared them. I get the same feeling out of both of them. They have a lot of overlap, a lot of differences too, but the tactical feeling of the two experiences for me absolutely delivers. Primal is amazing, although again, high price tag attached. The entry point to this game, once you factor in shipping, will run you around $200, so it's not a cheap entry point. Then again, using Marvel Champions as an example, Marvel Champions, if you want the base pledge, the entry point is, sure, the base box, the entry point is like $40, but if you want everything, if you want a halfway decent amount of content, you will easily pay that much for the amount of LCG content that the base pledge will give you here. So it's primarily that entry point's the issue. Because to try Marvel Champions, you'll need $50. To try Primal, you'll need $200, and that is a big ask. Now, I believe they've added TTS Play, if I'm not mistaken, so you can test if it's a game for you or not. For myself, I don't love TTS Play, and this is very much a card management game, which means I like that kind of experience even less in TTS. But if your options are paying $200 and hoping versus that way, versus at least getting to see or try in TTS, you can try it out over there and see if it's a game for you. Primal delivers. Primal is amazing. I am very, very excited for this game. The campaign was not necessarily as exciting to actually go through as some other campaigns. More scripted, less excited, more daily unlocks, which is fine. Let them run the campaign. But the amount of sheer variability you have between the monsters, between the hunters, between the upgrades, between the objectives, between the different things, between the fact you'll be forging your weapons in between gameplay as you take out these monsters and get their various runes and bones and all these things, and then trying to forge the weapons that work for you, deciding which hunters get what at any given point, which hunter is going to get that upgraded bow, which hunter is going to try to survive with a health potion. A ton of different things happening here. I cannot wait to dive into the full campaign experience. For context, I played this game, but I only got to play single shot adventures because that's all they had at the time, and even those were more than enough for me. And I'd say even better than that. I am excited about this game, I'm excited about the campaign, but they are campaigns, and that does come with the inherent threat of me not playing them enough. I loved the single shot adventures they gave me. They give you a little pre-scripted, okay, take these hunters with this weapon deck and start off there. And this will simulate being 3 missions deep. And I can't say if it simulates being 3 missions deep because I haven't played the campaign, but it gave me a different, challenging experience. You can mix things up and try to figure out which campaign simulation you want to jump into, so you do not need to commit to a campaign for Primal to be an immensely enjoyable experience. That's Primal, and not necessarily my favorite game on this list. In fact, I picked some games I'm excited about. I'd have a hard time telling you from these games, this is not the last one, by the way, the last one we'll get to in a second, but I would have a hard time telling you from these games which one was my favorite. So that's that. I mean, we will, let's come back to it in a second. Moving on, lastly, and you can see why this conversation is going this way, Endless Winter, 11,969 backers, less money than Primal because a less expensive price point, 767,000 euro coming in from Fantasia Games, first time publisher, first time Kickstarter, whatever it is. Amazing. Endless Winter is amazing. Endless Winter is from Stan Konansky. By the way, Stan Konansky currently has Resurgence over on Kickstarter. You should check that out as well. I like Stan's designs, and Endless Winter is absolutely no exception. This is a fantastic game. I mean, Mike Leese over here, if I had said design a game for me, it would probably be this game. This game checks every single box I can think of. This game is amazing. I love Endless Winter, and I haven't played with any of the modules, any of the expansions. I've only played with the base game. It's possible the expansions are terrible. It's possible they clutter a game that already does feel cluttered. My biggest critique of Endless Winter is that the base game of Endless Winter potentially feels like there's too much going on, and yet it all works together well. So I can't even imagine the expansions. I hope they're amazing. If they're all terrible, that's fine, because the base game is amazing. The base game is a deck-building worker placement experience, a genre that has become popular with Lost Ruins of Arnak and with Dune Imperium. At the same time, Endless Winter came first, although it came on Kickstarter first, so I don't know how you want to count what's first. I don't care. I do have a comparison video of all three if you want to check that on the channel. I enjoy all three, although Endless Winter and Lost Ruins of Arnak are my favorite, and from those, Endless Winter is my favorite, although I need to play it because I've been playing Lost Ruins of Arnak a lot, and I haven't played Endless Winter in a while. But Endless Winter has amazing art from the mid-show. It has an amazing streamlined design that works really well from Stan Konansky with Johnny Pack as the developer of the game and designer of some modules. It's a game that every single action feels tight. It lets you do so much and yet forces you to think about what you're doing at the same time, which again is a feeling that I very much get from Resurgence or from Rurik, other designs from Stan as well. Although from his designs, Endless Winter is my favorite one. it's a Euro game that feels free and restrictive at the same time, which to me is how I love my Euros. I love my Euros like Feld does Euros, that everything feels like you want to do more, but you do feel like you're doing a lot at the same time. That is my preferred Euro design, and very much Endless Winter falls into that category. Every single move is you try to figure out how to optimize your points. Do you go hunting? Do you try to manage the little Catan-esque mini board on the side? Do you build up your runestones and your little monuments and tributes? Do you weed your deck or not focus on that at all? Do you just try to get points from the various cards you're adding to your deck, which will also add abilities? How fast do you cycle your hand? What cards are you activating? Which point scoring little tablets are you trying to lock in? There's a ton going on in the game. Do you lean heavily into your strategy, or do you try to get that first player bonus because no one else went to one of these lanes and you'll get an extra bonus from you? It doesn't work as well with your strategy, but it lets you get more out of it. So what's the right move at any given time? I have enjoyed this game so much. It is ridiculously fun. I'm very excited for it. And again, there's expansions and stuff coming. They'll either add to the experience for me or they won't. I don't know, and I don't care. If the expansions work well for me, great, that's awesome. If the expansions don't work well for me, that's okay too. I'll have the base game. I have gotten rid of expansions before. Seven Wonders Babel is not a great expansion to the game, so I don't need it in my collection, but I still have Seven Wonders. That's great. That's happened true. Kemet and the Kemet Seth expansion, or whatever it is, did not do it for me either, but I still kept Kemet, and then I upgraded to Kemet Blood and Sam. That's a different story. Endless Winter is an amazing experience, a solid game. Really enjoyed this one. I like this game. People know that. People who watched my channel for a while have known that, because I was excited about this from the first time I got it, by the way. Like, this is one that I have been very excited for. This is my 2020 pick of the year as far as Kickstarter pick of the year. And it's a good thing it didn't complete with the others here, because I don't know what I'd pick if I faced off Endless Winter against Primal, against Vindication, against Machina Arcana, against Planet Unknown. There are multiple games here that are all best in class to a certain extent at what they're doing, and I don't know which ones I would pick if I'd have to do some sort of face off and play them more and convince myself that eventually I'll get rid of some of them, but I don't know if I will. There's a lot of solid games on this list, and in case you missed them, that's what this video was for. So yeah, what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games. 12 games. If I had to pick one to recommend to you, I probably would go with Endless Winter. If I had to pick my favorite game, I don't know which one would win. But I think Endless Winter likely has the widest general appeal. I remember when I reviewed Lost Ruins of Arnak, I remember saying that I think this game will be a top 100 game, and it is top 100. Lost Ruins of Arnak has since become a top 40. I think it's like the 40th highest game on Board Game Geek. And I think that's relevant because when I say something might be top 100, what I mean is that I believe the game is both amazing and it has that general wide appeal that is not localized to someone who really likes a crunchy, meaty card play mechanism boss battler, as Primal will be, or someone who likes the cube-pushing Euro skill management that Vindication has. All solid games. Or Machina Arcana that lets you dive through into a dungeon, scrolling around, side-scrolling through the dungeon, manipulating the enemies, because not every enemy can be faced off. Sometimes you have to run, sometimes you have to fight, sometimes you have to just flip a switch and have flame popping up, roasting people. There's a lot going on, but it's a more unique experience. Versus Endless Winter, I think, has that general wider availability, and so I think this will be my pick of the week if I had to pick a game from all of these that I recommend the most to you. You can go in at the base pledge, because I'm casually saying, oh, the expansions don't really matter, you don't need all that stuff, because who knows if it's good or not. That's great. That is great. But what if you get those and you don't really resell games the same way I do? I resell games that don't work for me, so I don't mind selling the expansions. If you're unsure, if you're on the fence, you can always get the base game. They almost certainly will have another Kickstarter down the road. They were resistant to making a big box because they planned on having a Kickstarter down the road, and with the success they had, they absolutely, I have to imagine, there will be another Endless Winter something down the road, and so get the base game if you're on the fence. Do not go all in. You'll be able to go all in later. That's fine. It's not a rush to do so now. That's basically everything. These are all the games, all the campaigns, a lot to go on in this kind of look back, to back or not to back episode. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And as always, I hope you have a good one. And speaking, by the way, first of all, let me just go back to this. In case you missed it, this is the last monster they showed in Monster Apocalypse, which closed, so you can't get it now, but this is the last one that they just showed. And then separately, back to my table, in case you noticed, that is Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion on my table. I'm like 5 games deep so far. 5 games deep into it, and yeah, that's because I put out a video, like I said, earlier this week, where I said I'm going to play these games or else, and Gloomhaven, I said I have 3 months to play Gloomhaven or it's going away, and so Gloomhaven's over here, and I better play it, because otherwise it's going away. It's not going away, by the way. I'm 5 games deep so far since doing that video. I read the rules, got everything set up, watched Rodney Smith's How to Play in the background, sat down. I've played Gloomhaven before, but I had never played Jaws of the Lion. Dove into it, gone through the 5 missions, really enjoying it like I expected to, but now I'm actually playing it and building that muscle memory of ensuring I actually get it played. I have complaints. I'll probably review it at some point, but I have complaints about the Gloomhaven system. It gets very boring and repetitive. Not boring. It gets repetitive, not boring. It gets very repetitive as you play through it, but the actual gameplay is very rewarding, even though it's repetitive. In any case, I'm off, and have a good one.